We're back with another comment section video. We did the Guild Wars 2 slander video, but only from WoW players, and we got some good comments, some good reactions, a lot of them directed at you, if you can believe it.
No, totally unexpected.
Well, you know, MMOs, they can't get along. So we're going to get into it. We're going to check out what the people have to say about Guild Wars 2 and about World of Warcraft. And let me just kick this one off. Some really in-depth, commentary here. Scott is somewhere between a bitter Betty and a salty Sally. I mean, the guy's making some points, hard to argue. What do you have to say to that, Scott?
I mean, the guy, Betty's his mom and Sally's his girlfriend. So it's a good place to be, honestly. Like, being between that is perfect. So thanks.
There we go. Scott Mean Mugs makes sour faces or pretends not to listen. He's really actively trying to hate Guild Wars 2 using the one time he's played. You're not going to win him over, Tom. I mean, I don't know. Making some points.
First of all, that's my face, okay? If I'm not smiling, or that's just my face. I can't change well, I guess technically you can change your face with some surgical procedures, but this is my face, guys. If I'm thinking, just it. Deal with it, okay? Jeez.
But all the jokes aside, I mean, obviously we don't take, those comments are what they are. I think the whole goal of our video before, or at least my goal, which I wanted to do, was kind of find middle ground between WoW and Guild Wars 2 players, right? And highlight the positives of both the games because, I like both games. I'm not, I'm a fan of both. I play both actively, if you can believe it. And so that was the point. But, it divides, people in MMOs are very tribal. They like one, they like another, and they don't like when people talk trash. But we're going to get into some of the good comments and see what people had to say.
All right, this one is from Ian P6994. He says, getting some very boomer vibes from Scott. Sorry. Well, you know what? Ian P, I am getting a little older and a little more cynical, so sorry for that, and I agree. And I've even admitted that. I don't get the whole Guild War. He said 3, but I think he means 2. Guild War 3 is not out yet, Tom. Calm down. Guild War 2 and the graphics being better. WoW doesn't look too good, and it's very popular. Old school RuneScape has like no graphics, and it's an icon game with a large player base. Graphics suck is a weak argument for any game. I agree. Just to say a game sucks based on graphics alone is not just a one and done case to say the game sucks. But some people enjoy graphics. I'm one of those people. If the graphics aren't great, I'm going to enjoy the game less. That's just how it is for me. But I agree with you. I agree with the sentiment. WoW has gone through a lot of graphical upgrades. Classic WoW obviously looked very dated, but the new graphical updates are great. So it does make the game feel and look a lot better. Guild Wars, I don't think the graphics are bad, but it's also an older game too. And I think they could also go through a wave of improvements, but I don't think they're bad. I just don't think they're anything spectacular either. And when it comes to combat, I was left wanting more.
Yeah, I think as far as the graphics go, I think maybe what you're saying is I think it's more of like a feel. Like, you prefer a certain style. It's not like either one are bad or either one are revolutionary, or they're obviously old games, right? So their graphics are not top of the line. So I get what this guy's saying. He's like, I think he thinks you're attacking graphics, or some people are, and saying, well, WoW is 20-year-old graphics. Yeah, but, it's kind of also a nostalgia thing, right? I play certain games that are older, and I have a loyalty to those games, and I like the graphical style to those games, maybe because I played them when I was younger. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a preference, right? And so while and Guild Wars 2, to be fair, is very stylized. It is there's not
It
really
is.
any other game that has that style of graphics. So I can see where some people are just like, it's not for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
and
I get
and
that.
I've changed over the years as well. Like if I talk about Galaxies a lot, I loved Galaxies, and I played the ever out of that game. But watching older videos now, it'd be hard for me to go back to that because I've become accustomed to great looking games like Red Dead Redemption. Like to me, that game ruined everything for me. So to go back to an even older game that I once loved would be hard. So graphics for me as an individual play a big role in my enjoyment of a game. Just period. Okay, this one is by Leonard Obertonoli 712. Every time a WoW player says Guild Wars 2 combat is terrible, I think to myself, so you like a combat that is stiff, boring, without fluidity, and full of obstacles. Okay, you go, boy. Guild Wars 2 is among the best combat systems ever developed, and it's not because you are bad at it that is terrible. You are. The combat is not LMAO. Okay, I don't get that last part. But anyways, agree to disagree, man. I think WoW combat feels fantastic. It's not action combat. It is tab target, lock on. That being said, it's smooth. I think it's some of the best gameplay out there as far as MMOs go, and it's clearly lasted the test of time. And I don't think Guild Wars 2 is among the best combat. We've heard a lot of people agreeing with me, even Coltrane and Chase in our last podcast. I know Tom likes it, and I get why people like it, but it's just not for me. It doesn't feel smooth to me. I mean, we've done this song and dance before. I personally just cannot get into it. But that doesn't mean it's terrible. It just means it's not for me. But comparing it to WoW, I don't know. I'm always gonna say, even Tom, I think you've said WoW is better combat in general. Is that not a true statement?
No, definitely not.
You don't think it's better?
I
Okay.
don't think it's better. I think I've said I like WoW combat. I don't think it's bad. I guess my point. I like both. I almost think they're kind of like maybe not apples to oranges, maybe like oranges to clementines. I don't know. It's like I don't know how to say it. It's but I want to address the
Cheddar
comment.
to Baby Bell. I don't know.
No, I do want to address the comment because I think it's just highlighting what the differences are and why someone would not like versus like. Because Guild Wars 2, while you can tab, it's really not a tab target game, right?
Yeah.
Every ability is a cleave ability. If I hit an ability on my sword, if I'm not tabbed on the person in front of me, it hits that enemy. There's a cone, there's a radius, there's a cleave to it. And so I think this is going to highlight this in the next comment. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but WoW is very static in its combat, especially with casters, of course. You have to be rooted in place. And I get that some people like that. It maybe feels punchier or something, for that reason. And
Not all casters. Ellies are
Right.
super mobile.
well, I mean, I guess the point is Guild Wars, you don't have to be rooted for anything. Everything is
Yeah.
cast on the move, even channeled abilities, kind of a thing. And so I think you have this I think Guild Wars was kind of a transition phase between like the full blown like action combat games that a lot of people love these days. And I think that wave is just carried on. I think a lot of the younger MMO players love the like BDO style, like action combat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? More combo based, all of that. And so I think I don't know if it's a generational thing. I don't really know. But a lot of us
Yeah.
grew up on WoW. And so, we like that style of combat. And like I said, I'm a fan. I just think they're different. And I think the differences in WoW, I think that the essence of this comment is you can stand in a raid and with one hand, you can fight a boss, right? You can stand in place with your mage and do stuff. Guild Wars 2, every single second, every combat is built around movement. You must be moving. You must be engaged. You can't look away from the screen. I think they're saying the combat is better because it's more engaging, it's more movement
Yeah.
based, not necessarily because it feels better, I guess I would say. I don't know. That's my read on it. That's
They're
one of
just
the
two
reasons
different
I love it.
flavors.
It is. It is.
That's it. That's all it comes down to.
It is. So I get what he's saying. But
But
let's.
in that sense too, and I'm sure we'll hit it here also in a minute, but I just think I don't dislike action combat. I love single player games that are action combat. So it's not the action combat itself. It's that I don't like the Guild Wars 2 action combat. It feels, I've said it, I've said it before, I'll say it again. It feels floaty. It feels like you're on ice skates. It doesn't have good feedback. So it's not action combat itself. It is just the way that it feels in that particular game for me.
And I totally disagree. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, next up, CHK3377. This is a little bit of a long one, guys. Stick with us. It says, personally, I can understand a lot of what Scotty says, but you should also consider how much WoW has influenced its players over 20 years of time. Anyone who, like me, has spent 15 years and a lot of time in WoW will be familiar with certain processes, mechanics, etc., or how things should be, have been indoctrinated into those WoW players, he's saying. You try out new MMOs and think something is missing. Why don't they do it like WoW? People who come from WoW to Guild Wars 2 and try it out leave Guild Wars 2 because Guild Wars 2 withholds the carrot on a stick from them, and they have to decide for themselves how the player spends their time in the game. Many players can't do that. So he's referencing it being less on rails than like a WoW, for example. It says, Preach described it best in his video, Heart of Thorns changed my perspective on MMOs when he realized in Heart of Thorns, I'm playing the game wrong. I can't play it like, he says, a WoW add-on. But the essence is he's saying Guild Wars 2 and WoW are different games, so you can't approach them the same. Anyway, man, what's your take on this? He's referencing like, I've kind of referenced this in the past too, and this was kind of a part of the initial thought process of the video, that WoW players have a certain ingrained sense of what an MMO should be or how it should be played. Do you think that holds true? Like just looking in, you know?
Absolutely. I think that speaks to the psychology of it. Of course, naturally, anything out of what we've become accustomed to, we're creatures of habit. We know what we like and we want to keep experiencing it most of the time. And some people are better at going through change and trying other things. So I do think this is a valid point. And I think in my case too, that has been a big part of why I haven't been able to get into Guild Wars. Especially like a game such as WoW, when you feel like you spent so much of your time being married to it. Like that was your one and only game. That's what you played. That's what you came to expect. So it is jarring on the surface. And I'm sure that's really swayed my perception of it quite a bit. And I'll be the first to admit it. But yeah, and because it's had such a big hold on the genre for so long now, it's hard to go after that. It's like it's the same way for anything else, like basketball. We're always going to compare people to Michael Jordan, or and then years now we'll be comparing to LeBron. So there's always what we consider this gold standard, and anything that sways outside of that lane feels like it's maybe not as good enough, when the answer is it's just simply different.
Yeah, it is very unique because, really when WoW came on the scene, I would say MMOs were still in their infancy, right?
Yeah, they were.
I mean, I know there have been MMOs before, but WoW really took MMOs to the mainstream and did a lot of amazing things, really. And so I think those effects are still being felt, especially by people who grew up on WoW. So, and I wasn't a vanilla player, so that's why I think maybe I'm able to transition in and out of MMOs more, just because I was late to the party and there was more than one type of MMO out when I was able to jump in. And so that could be a reason, but I'm susceptible to this same thing, right? Like the guys in the Discord want to play Warzone, Call of Duty. I'm like, no, I'm a Battlefield guy. I'm a Halo guy. You know what I mean? Like it's not that the other one's bad or different and that we can't have fun. It's just you have these preferences ingrained
Yeah.
from when you were younger, nostalgia or whatever the case. So, and that was another thing I wanted to highlight in the WoW video, and I think we did, and I think everyone, for the most part, was pretty open minded and honest about those things, and so.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think he makes a good point, good take.
Great point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Thank you for the comment. Awesome. This final comment by a Philion. He says, "It sounds like they never hit max level and tried elite specs or any other weapons. Warrior Hammer and Mace has an insane crush sound. Ranger two-hander, great sword, maul, crunches peeps, and having the trait to reset it and go again just feels so good. I think a lot of the peeps who try Guild Wars 2 never give it a fair shake and don't try the awesome things. They just level a little and worry that there is no hand holding." What are your thoughts first on that before I hit it?
Yeah. I think there's some truth to what he's saying. I think a lot of people don't give Guild Wars 2 a fair shake.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part that is kind of sad. I think there's a lot of enjoyment in Guild Wars 2. I think this is kind of undisputed that it's kind of maybe the best value out there for your money as far as MMOs go. As far as what you get, the level 80 experience for free, and then the expansions being so cheap, no sub fee. But and I get what he's saying about elite specs. Obviously, MMOs, we know this to be a fact. As development studios go further and further into the development life of an MMO, it gets better. It just does. And so, yes, some of the elite specs feel better. They've filled out more roles. You can do more things with them, cooler animations, abilities, weapons, all that kind of stuff is true. But I still think it comes down to a feel. I mean, every game is not for everyone, and so I get that. I just, I want people just to respect Guild Wars 2 for what it is. They don't have to love Guild Wars 2. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they don't have to play, kind of a thing. I want, hey, just recognize the things that it does well, give it its props, and same for WoW. Look at it objectively. Hey, what does WoW do great? Why has it been on top for so long? And just give it its props, even if it's not for you. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of my take. I mean, he's saying a lot of true stuff, but at the end of the day, if it takes you 100 hours to figure out if you like or don't like a game, then it doesn't click with you. You shouldn't have to stick around that long and play multiple expansions to figure it out. There's so many good MMOs and games. If it doesn't click, I mean, just go to the next thing and find what you like. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Good. He says some good stuff, but at the same time, it's not gospel to me. So I don't know. Well, what you think?
Let's see what amount of brevity I can speak to here. Okay. First of all, I wanted to acquiesce just a little bit and say that I have never tried to at least indicate, or that was never my intent, to say that Guild Wars as a whole is a bad game, because
right.
I do not think it is. I truly think that's my opinion, that it's not a bad game. I don't think it's objectively a bad game. I do think if we're going to be honest and objectively evaluate it, it is by most metrics a good game. The issue has always been combat for me. That's the one reason I haven't played it. But as Aphelion said here, what stands out to me is he said that I don't think a lot of people give it a fair shake, and I will submit there and say that I have not given it a fair shake. I've played very little. Most of my opinions are surface level. I'm not an expert on it. I haven't spent hundreds of hours coming to that conclusion. It has simply been that the combat was so on the first look and feel of it, just was very off-putting to me.
Just didn't connect.
So that,
yeah,
sure. It just didn't connect, and that's always been the very small but powerful caveat of it for me. But you know, I want to be equitable in my opinion, and just put that out there. And I agree that when people were getting on to me, it's true. I haven't given it that fair shot. So, but the mean mugs, the boomers. All right, that's fair too. I'll give them that too.
No. Some were a little harsh. You know, come on.
I don't care, man.
No, I know you don't.
I don't care. I love it. But I think at some point I will. Well, I don't know when, but I hope to at least give it a fair shot one day. And I think part of the problem has been just going to max level, jumping in, having no idea what's going on in the world, in the story, how combat truly works. It's all very surface level experiences. So, I mean, you know me though. That's just me trying to twist the knife a little bit and get a rise out of people, and how it seems to work. But yeah, in the most honest sense here, is with as much candor as I can put forth. Like, yeah, I would like to give it that fair shot and hopefully see what everybody else is talking about, because apparently it is great.
Yeah, man. Like I said, at the end of the day, like, you know, there's so many good MMOs. There's so many good games. I think at the heart of it, I just want MMOs to be good. I want them to learn from each other, to take what's good and to use that. I don't mind if they borrow from each other. WoW does that a lot.
Yeah.
Guild Wars does that a lot. You know, and I'm totally cool with it. So I hope that they'll learn from each other. I hope there's a WoW 2.0 reset in the horizon, and I hope there's a Guild Wars 3. I know both of those are kind of unpopular opinions. It seems like these days, but I think we want innovation in MMOs. You know, we want them to push the envelope to be good. And so at the end of the day, man, I just love these conversations. I love talking about MMOs. I like seeing what the differences are, analyzing why we like it, why we don't, the philosophy behind a lot of these things, which is, I like that you bring that to the table. And so
I think that MMOs are still relatively in their infancy. Like 20 years in the grand scheme of things, developing is not a long time. It feels like it to us players, and we've seen the very beginning of it, but I think it's just getting started. And there's just a myriad of experiences to be had going forward. And the more they learn from each other, the more trial and error is utilized, we're eventually going to end up at a place where the MMOs are checking every box for a lot of players and really focusing on what makes them great, and hopefully getting rid of all the other just fluff and useless stuff that's been there for a while, which WoW is not innocent of having. So this is all good. These conversations are good, and I think they push us in a direction to where MMOs will eventually become just a well thought out, well cultivated project that is just ironed out and ready to play.
And maybe even the most important, thank you guys for the comments. We appreciate you guys lending your opinion to this type of stuff, and we like making these comment section videos to see what everybody's saying. And so,
hold on, let me mean mug while you go out.
Keep the comments coming. Maybe Scotty will cheer up a little bit. Say some nice things about Scotty in this one, okay, guys? And hey, we'll see you guys in the next comment section. Later, everybody.
Later.